This page of my memoir looks pretty simple. It's just me driving to a tattoo appointment for my first tattoo, but that drive represented years of talking myself out of becoming the person that I wanted to be. So, this is the page that I'm going to be working on today while I talk to you a little bit about that day, about that experience. So, as mentioned in Comic Diary number 1, I'm working on a memoir. Not like a whole life story, but a specific period that, was filled with like growth and grief. Um, so basically, I had wanted to get a tattoo for a number of years. Um, well, I shouldn't say a number. There was a point for sure where I thought I would never get a tattoo. And once I started wanting one, I was just really, really scared. Um, and I wasn't worried about like regretting what the tattoo was of or regretting getting the tattoo in general or something like that. It wasn't anything about that. Um, it was more that I was literally scared of the pain, um, which I don't hear people talk about very much. I definitely have an aversion to pain, even though, of course, I've, been through some stuff that was painful and, tolerated that. But I guess because I had nothing to compare it to, right? So my first attempt was when we went to visit Japan, and I found a tattoo artist there that I really liked, that was in Osaka. And, I picked a design and I paid the down payment, all that stuff, like a couple months in advance and everything. And I had been mentally preparing, um, a lot. Like I was always looking up stuff about like how to be more prepared um, for the tattoo appointment. So I was like, I thought I was going to do it on my forearm. And so I was like lotioning my arm every day. I was like trying to stay more hydrated than I've ever been before. And, I was doing that prep like for um, at least a couple months leading up to um, when we were actually going to be in Japan. And then, so we get to Japan and, I love it, obviously, but I wasn't expecting to, basically, like, my stomach was kind of messed up from that long flight. And, like, I didn't feel bad, but I didn't feel hungry at all. Um, and then I'm also like really, really severely lactose intolerant. And so with the combination of not being hungry and then like initially just trying to like eat stuff from konbini whenever we could, um there was like a surprising amount of stuff in the konbini that had dairy in it. So I was like having a hard time eating it all, because either I just didn't feel like it or then when I wanted to I couldn't find something to eat, right? I had a lot more success like later on the trip, but this is like the first day or so. And, so I haven't slept well. I'm like dehydrated. I couldn't have a good breakfast. And like, so those are all, the opposite of what I had been reading up until that point about, preparing for getting a tattoo. And, so I get to the appointment and, the artist, he's very nice and everything. Um, but I was so anxious. I like made it up into his studio and like he printed out the design and it was bigger, I think, than we had talked about. Um, it was probably like this big or something, which, it would have taken up almost my whole forearm. And I was like, well, that's not what I, thought that we talked about. And he didn't really want to make it any smaller, which I understand. He didn't probably want to like lose the resolution of detail that he put into it and stuff like that. Um, but I just kept getting more and more anxious. and, combined with like feeling like I was unprepared, I just I couldn't do it. Um, and I like started crying, and I, apologized to him, in English and Japanese, and um, I felt so guilty. Obviously I paid the deposit and all that kind of stuff. But and so I know things like that happen, but I felt so guilty, and I was so angry at myself. I was like, man, you've been planning this for months, and like this was supposed to be like a really awesome souvenir, and like, I initially didn't tell people about it, but then I ended up telling my students about it, and I was like, I'm going to disappoint my students. um, and yeah, I was just like crying, and then I felt really bad because then the tattoo artist, I was talking to my partner outside and like crying, in the alleyway, and then he came out because I had left my DSLR camera in the tattoo studio. I brought that because I was taking lots of pictures of Japan, and like he came out and he looked kind of like, oh my gosh, she's like really crying and stuff. And so I felt bad. I was like, oh, I hope he doesn't feel like he did something wrong, because he didn't. Um, but yeah, so that didn't work out. And then on the same trip, like a couple days later, like after I had been able to like find more stuff to eat and everything, and I was feeling more hydrated and like more, um, got more sleep, more adjusted to the trip. I was like, okay, I found this other, studio, um, with an artist I liked, a female artist. And I was like, okay, I want to try to get this other tattoo. Um, and, I made an appointment, paid the down payment, all that. And then it was like first thing in the morning was going to be the appointment. And, you know, we get there and we're like pretty early. And I was like, okay, I'm early. This is good. I've got water, I'm drinking water. And like there was kind of like this waiting area outside of the tattoo shop because it was like inside of another building. And I was just sitting in the waiting area, and I was like trying to deep breathe and like all this stuff. And I thought if I sat there and like, deep breathed and meditated long enough and stuff, that I would be able to go in and do it. And for some reason, I still couldn't do it. And so again, I was really mad at myself, and yeah, really hard on myself, and disappointed that I didn't end up getting a souvenir that I really wanted. Um, and I was like, I guess this is it. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get a tattoo, because for some reason I can't like conceptually get around the pain. And I think my brain was like really blowing it up, how much it was going to hurt. Of course it hurts, right? But into like this like crazy thing that I would never be able to do. And so in July of last year, um, on my birthday, I knew at that point that my dad only had a couple of months left to live. And when I was little, he used to draw me Snoopy. Um, my dad was not necessarily an artistically gifted person, but he was pretty good at drawing Snoopy, like dancing Snoopy, and Snoopy the Red Baron, like on the top of his doghouse. And he would draw that for me all the time when I was little. And so, this one day, we went over to my parents' house, and I brought my sketchbook, and I asked my dad to draw the Snoopy tattoo. Well, I didn't tell him it was going to be a tattoo, but I asked him if he would draw the Snoopy for me. And he did. First he looked through my sketchbook, and he was like, everything in here is so good. Like, I don't know why you want me to draw my drawing in here. Like, it doesn't deserve to be in your sketchbook. And I decided that I wanted to get the Snoopy tattooed, and the appointment was in September, and that was the earliest I could get it. And I was like, well, that'll work. That's like a couple days before his birthday or whatever, right? So it's going to be a really cool birthday surprise. for him. Not only is his Snoopy good enough for my sketchbook, it's good enough, for my arm. And so I was doing all the preparing and stuff again, like I was doing before, drinking water, lotioning my arm every day. Um, picked a different spot than my forearm. It's like, going to be on my, above my elbow on my arm. And and then my dad ended up passing away at the beginning of August. The day that I'm recording this video is his 1 year anniversary of passing away. And man, I was so heartbroken that he wasn't going to get to see the tattoo. Um, but also for my birthday that year, he gave me a really sweet card, and he actually wrote like a whole paragraph worth of stuff in there, which I don't know how y'all's dads are, but like I don't think he had ever given me a card where he wrote that much. And maybe he knew that that was his last one. I don't know. I'm gonna try not to cry for the video. That's not the point of the video. Um, but yeah, so basically I decided to get like the Snoopy and like a couple lines of text that he wrote in the card, like in his handwriting. And so that I'm really nervous, right? The day of the appointment, I'm like, oh, man, like I can do this, right? Like this is the time that I can finally do it. And I get in the car, um, and I drive to my appointments first thing in the morning because I'm kind of a morning person. Like that's when my brain works best. That's when I feel the most ready for stuff. And I'm driving to the appointment. It's a little bit far from my house, and it was so weird. It was like I had like the biggest smile on my face the whole time I was driving. And I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt like so content and like just blissful. I don't know. And I was very intentional about the tattoo artist that I picked. She seemed like she was a really kind person, like had like a little bit more of a quiet demeanor, and she had like a private suite. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be okay. Like I'm not gonna get overstimulated by like hearing a bunch of people getting tattooed at once or something, or lots of talking. Um, and so I get there. I'm like a little nervous, but I'm like, nope, go ahead, go inside. You got this. Um, and I go inside, and her name is Victoria. She's very kind and stuff. She's putting on the stencil and everything, and like, we move it a little bit, and then I, lay down, and I had made like a playlist for the tattoo appointment. Um, it was mostly like relaxing songs, and I was, I'm not very good at small talk in general, and I was really nervous about trying to make small talk with someone while I was, potentially in pain. Because again, I have no reference point. I don't know how it's gonna feel. I'm pretty scared. And so she's very understanding. I put my headphones on, I turn on the playlist, and like, she starts tattooing. And I put like a couple thousand songs on this playlist because again, I'm really nervous and I'm just kind of over preparing for everything. And the first song that plays while she's starting the tattoo is this song that I talk about in my memoir that was one of my dad's favorite songs. Later in life, particularly leading up to the end here, like he would play it like every day, like he would put it on YouTube, and my mom said he would listen to it like once a day, and that's the song that started playing um when she started the tattoo. And like, yeah, I cried. Of course, like sentimentally I cried. The tattoo, that one, turned out it was fine. I was like, oh, like it hurt, but it didn't hurt anything like I thought that it was gonna hurt. Um, it was totally fine. And then, I felt kind of silly for being so worried. Um, but I was really glad that that was my first tattoo and my first tattoo experience. I think it went really well. And since then, it hasn't even been a year since I got the other tattoo, and I've since gotten a second one. And yeah, just really grateful. And so it ended up being a more memorial tattoo, and my family liked it, even though, even my family members, they're kind of like iffy about tattoos and stuff. They really liked it. They liked the gesture and stuff. And um, so yeah, that's the story of me getting my first tattoo. Um, after, some trials and tribulations, and it being super, super special, um, to me, and probably more special than, the idea for the very first tattoo that I was gonna get, in Japan and stuff like that. So we'll see if next time I go to Japan, if I'll be able to like do it again. I think I've kind of gotten a routine down for getting a tattoo here. Um, but sometimes things are different when you travel and whatnot. Um, like you feel different than you do on an everyday day here at home. Um, but yeah, so that's my tattoo story. And this is a page from my memoir that is about me smiling like a goofball on the way to get the tattoo. So I hope you enjoyed this story. I'm going to be making more about different pages in my memoir that I'm releasing in September, I believe. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.